Sackville on the High Marsh Road. We have 18 solar panels, and I guess it's the third or fourth year since we've got them installed. They're net metered, meaning that it's connected to the grid, so we don't have a battery backup in this case. So when the power goes off, like last fall we had an ice storm, or there was no, I don't know if it was an ice storm, but there was no power for 2 days. We don't get any power, even though the panels are still creating power.
Okay. And why did you decide to have solar panels installed at your place?
Well, we're very conscious about the environment. We definitely want to move ahead on a no carbon future, and this is one thing that we decided to do rather than spending our money on other things like trips or expensive cars, or this is what we decided to do for us personally, and it feels really good.
That's awesome. Do you have issues with snow in the winter? Do the panels get covered in snow? Do they still work?
Well, they can get covered, and if there's ice on the back side, maybe I can show you the next clip, there is a broom, so I sweep it off. But all it takes is if I stretch out with the broom and I put a little bit of hole in it, the heat of the panels themselves melt it. And you shouldn't have, see, if you have an ice coating on it, let the heat of the sun melt it off. You shouldn't use a scraper not to damage the panels. So yes, snow collects on them, but the sun will eventually melt them off. But you can encourage that if you're really counting, particularly in the wintertime, the sun is not as strong. So after a night snowfall or late in the day, you might make sure that there's a crack in it so it speeds up. I guess the other thing I should mention, ours is a ground-mounted system, and maybe our house, the way our house is, the right orientation of the house, it's not quite facing the right optimal angle. So your instructor that comes on site does a site evaluation, and he determined that first there were two things wrong with our house. The pitch wasn't right. Not wrong with the house, but the pitch wasn't right, and also that we had to do a clear cut in front of the house, and that shouldn't go over well with us. So we have a nice field, so we did like this. So this did cost us more money, but it also had the advantage that when there was snow cover, we could come out with a broom and we could clean it off. Whereas the roof, well, you could get a ladder up there, but it's a lot more risky.
For sure. And you said you have 18 panels. What's the reason for having that number of panels?
In our case, because it's an older farmhouse, the heating requirements require a heat pump, and when you have electric devices that draw a lot, it's difficult to use with solar panels. So when you make an efficient, well-insulated home, you don't have to worry about that. The house creates its own heat, or there's passive solar through the windows, and that's not the case with our house in the large size. So it does provide quite a bit of energy for our house, but not entirely. We're still reliant on the grid. So in some cases this might be better for people. In the wintertime when it's cloudy, December can be really bad for sun. And if you're solely off grid, you'd have a lot of batteries in your house somewhere, and there's some things you have to learn about the maintenance of your batteries. But when you're net metered, you have that luxury of, if you don't create power from sun, you've got it from the grid.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I think in new constructions, we should be relying on houses that are self-sufficient and don't require these amounts of draw of energy. In our case, our house, because it was so old, it's about 170 years old.
And how does that work in terms of your power bill when it comes to taking energy from the grid and producing your own energy? How does that work?
Right. So we get a regular NB power bill, and depending on how much electricity we demand from the grid, we pay for that. However, the catch with the solar panels is stuff that we don't produce goes off of the grid. So my understanding is that the neighbors around, if it's a sunny day and we're not using that much and there's extra going out, the neighbors right away would get it. And we're credited for that. So that goes towards our bills, so it's kind of nice in the wintertime when you get accumulated in the summertime, and that helps some of the bills in the summertime. I guess the only really drawback to that system is in two things. In April they zero you out, so you can't accumulate if you have extra. It may not be that bad, but the other thing is that you're taxed on it. So what we try to do is when there's sun, we try to coordinate. It doesn't always work for various reasons, but We try to do our wash, vacuum clean. We have for our business, we have an electric vehicle, so we try to charge when there's ample sun. So we try to use that as much as possible, and to keep the tax down as well, so we get better value out of what we're producing. We have seriously thought of maybe getting a hybrid system where we could have some batteries in, because it is a bit annoying when there's no power and you're looking outside and it's a bright sunny day, the electrical line is down and you're not getting any power.
Gotcha. So you mentioned clearing snow off. Is there any other maintenance that you have to do?
You know, you can do more with the panel, but it's not really maintenance. But why I thought of that right away is that you know, occasionally I'll come out and just check to see if it's registering. In the beginning there were some problems with the software, but it wasn't that complicated. But that was a way of going out to see how much electricity, so you can see how much is being.
Okay.
Well, this is a good. You know, this time of day we could probably getting up to, we have 352, but it's a cloudy day, but we're still getting energy, which is pretty good.
And what are the units on that?
Watts. So we
Okay.
can get up to max of 44,000 watts with our system. The max, like in midsummer. And there are more things you can do with this panel, but you can let it be. But you can also get, if you're into that, you can get yourself a nap, so that, I don't know, I'm another part of the province, I can flick up my phone and say, oh, today we're producing, well, but we get the statement from NB Power how much we produce, so
Okay.
but that's just a fun gadget if you want to go that way.
Okay.
And I did mention the broom, so we got a broom on the back side here for cleaning the snow. And then from here, I guess one of my first response with this was LCD screen. It can handle the cold weather, and apparently it can, and does very well. And it uses a very amount, a little bit of energy from the solar panels to do this panel. And so at nighttime it just goes quiet, it doesn't work, so it's relying on the energy from the panel to light up the screen.
Oh.
And then there's cables that go into the ground and into our electric panel in the basement.
Okay.
So earlier we talked about the wooden, the ground structure. So we had to get this built as opposed to the roof structure, which is less expensive. And in this case here we got two birdhouses, and I'm happy to say I had a family tree swallows in the birdhouses, so that it's serving other purposes for wildlife. And I've heard some stories about people saying that, oh my God, if you have solar panels around, the birds are going to fry. Well, the swallows have spent several times sitting up on the edge of the on the panel, no problem whatsoever. So that, you know, it does produce a little bit of heat. There is heat loss from it, but that's not enough to burn you. But there's 18 panels, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 18 panels. And it's close to 5 megawatt. Yeah.
And you have solar panels, I see.
Indeed we do.
All right. Can you introduce yourself for the... Hi, I'm Lauren. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Roland. I live in Sackville on the Highmark Road.
That didn't work because the
The
camera...
Well, you can tighten that little knob there.
Is that this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
There. See, if you let it go, you can put it as tight. Is that the right one? Yeah.
I think so, because it's not... All right. I'm sorry. Can we...